From time to time, I like to have a free-form discussion about bikes, particularly ones that I'm testing or projects that I'm doing. And in this video, I want to talk about what I think is the Goldilocks bike. And what do I mean by Goldilocks bike? Well, it's a bike where the head angle is not too slack or not too steep, it's not too heavy or not too light, and I'm going to talk about those qualities here in a minute. A while ago, I made a video of what I thought was probably the best all-around trail bike, and that is a 29er with like 130, 140 in the front, 120 in the back. But I'm going to introduce another bike that I feel like is one of the best all-around bikes as well, and that is a 27.5 trail bike that's got about 150 in the front, maybe 140, 150 in the back. So behind me is the Niner Jet 9 29 and Niner Rip 9 27.5. Both of those bikes are the bikes that I described. So let's talk about what makes a bike a Goldilocks bike, a perfect all-arounder for a lot of the trails that we ride and for a lot of riders. So I talked about the head angle. I think a head angle around 66 to 68 degrees is about perfect for an all-arounder. Head angle geometry can make a big difference. Now let's talk about the different types of bikes and why I feel like these types of bikes make the best all-arounders. So my Enduro bike is a Transition Sentinel. Absolutely love that bike. And I've got the new one coming in, so I'm really stoked about trying that one out. That bike, when you're in the parking lot or on smooth, slow, tight trails, it feels pretty sluggish. It feels like the front end's floppy, but when you get that bike up to speed, especially on chunky, rough terrain, that bike just comes alive. Now, that bike, I can feel overbiked on a lot of trails, especially locally. I absolutely would not buy that bike for my local trails. My local trails are cross country. Even down in Santos, which has more chunky terrain, I actually prefer a more mid-travel bike on those types of trails, unless I'm just, want to go like off drops and stuff like that, then I like the Sentinel. But I have the Sentinel for doing enduro races, which I'm about to get into, and of course, going up to my favorite place to ride is Pisgah National Forest. I just love the trails there. I love the chunky, rough, fast descents. That's why I have the Transition Sentinel. On the other end of the spectrum, my cross-country bike, which is currently a Niner RKT9, on that bike, I can feel underbiked on a lot of trails. If I'm on rough, chunky terrain, that bike has a 70-degree head angle. By the way, the Transition Sentinel has a 64. So the cross-country bike with a 70-degree head angle, you can get into trouble on rough terrain if you're not careful. I find that steeper head angles are super fast, super agile, but if the bike starts to get squirrely or you hit something that just takes you offline, you can get into trouble real quick. Now, that bike is super fast on a cross-country course. It's my weapon of choice on a lot of local single track. I just love how snappy and agile and how fast that bike accelerates. On these two bikes, I feel like I am not overbiked or underbiked on about 80% of the trails that I ride. Now, I've ridden in a lot of places. I've ridden Arizona, Washington State, Colorado, New Jersey, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And I feel like on most of the trails that I've ridden all over the country, and of course Florida where I live, I feel like these two bikes are going to be the bikes where I could hit anything and, like I said, not be overbiked or underbiked on about 80% of the rides. Now, yes, super fast enduro type stuff, I need to take it a little bit easier. On cross-country stuff, races or fast cross-country group rides, or if I'm trying to, set a PR on a cross-country course, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit overbiked on these for sure. But again, if fun is the name of the game and you just want a versatile bike, these bikes with about a 66, 67 degree head angle, 2.5 tires, I just think they're the best all-arounder. So let's talk about 27.5, 29 for a second. And I'm not going to go too far into that because I'm going to do that in some other videos. But I feel like, and I've said this before, but I feel like these two bikes are made for about the same type of terrain. So the Jet 9 has 130 travel in the front, 120 in the back. The RIP 27.5 has 150 in the front, 140 in the back. Because the 29er gets over things a little bit better, you don't need quite as much travel. What I love about the 27.5 is you can add more travel, 150, without making the bike feel too high or, just too big. So again, I feel like these two types of bikes kind of are equal in the sense of the type of riding that you're going to do on them. Now, the advantage of the 29, and again, I'm not going to go too far into this, but just the grip in the corners, you can just throw that thing into the corners or over rough stuff and be a little bit more composed, a little bit more confident. And also it's faster. So I've done quite a few just tests between these two bikes, and on most trails, in fact all the ones that I've tested, the 29 is just a little bit faster. It's not a lot faster, just a little bit faster. So if going from point A to point B as fast as you can is a priority, then 29 is probably the way to go. The advantage of the 27.5 is the fact that it is just super agile, fun, playful. It's agile without feeling unstable like a cross-country bike might be on really rough stuff. So because it has more travel, slacker angles, it's stable, and because it has smaller wheels, it's more agile. So it just combines a lot of ride characteristics. And let me say one thing here. I feel like the consumer would be disserviced by the bike industry if the bike industry ever did away with 27.5 trail bikes. Now in cross country, I think 29 is the way to go. I've said that before. Enduro, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I think more people are going 29 because of the need for speed in enduro racing. But for trail bikes, I am still having a hard time deciding which one of these would be my trail bike. Today, I still haven't decided. I'm leaning towards one. I'm not going to really say, but it's still up in the air for me. That goes to show that there are people who are going to want the agility of the 27.5, the playfulness, the fun factor. I don't think 29 is the solution for every rider out there for trail bikes. Fortunately, you've got companies like Niner who are making the RIP 27.5. You got companies like Transition who just redesigned the Transition Scout. I reviewed that bike. I'll put the link to that review in the description below. I had a blast on that bike. And so I just want to throw that out there that personally, I don't think 27.5 trail bikes are going to go away. And these types of bikes are a perfect example of why. So I mentioned the head angle being about 66, 67 being the best for the all-arounder, the Goldilocks bike. The weight is something that's also important. I mentioned that at the beginning of the video, and here's the reason why I say that. If you have a bike that's too heavy, obviously it's going to be really sluggish uphill on tighter stuff where you're trying to accelerate quick. But you can also have a bike that's too light, because when you make a bike too light, you're making some compromises in the frame. What makes these bikes so fun, and this is why I love Transition, why I love Niner, is because they build their frames to be stiff. A stiff frame is not going to be the lightest frame, but to me it's more fun to ride, especially going downhill and especially when you're popping in and out of corners or going over rough stuff. It's hard to explain. You have to experience it to know what I'm talking about, but a stiff frame is going to make for a bike that, to me, it's just more fun to ride. I feel like I can get more aggressive on the bike and stay in control. So that is just a discussion that I wanted to have again about the best all-arounder, kind of throwing a 27.5 trail bike into the mix. So any questions or comments that you have so far on these two bikes, just drop those below. I'll try to answer them. I'm going to be making a few more videos comparing these two bikes. Again, personally trying to decide which one I go with, but honestly, for an all-arounder, I don't think I can make a wrong choice. They have different ride characteristics, different ride qualities, but both of these types of bikes are super fun to ride. That's it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.